Go ahead. You're good.
So we're going to try and buy the stuff we want out
Okay,
of
good start.
What's that? Good start? Okay, I was just trying to see who's all,
For sure, everyone's here.
everyone's here?
Yep.
All right. Hey, everybody. So we'll call the meeting to order. We got the minutes issued last week. I've got a copy here. Did everybody get a chance to read those?
Yes, I had a chance to read them.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any discussions or any corrections that we need to make? As a no. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second? Anybody?
I'll second it.
Whew, it's gonna be a long meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, so I heard Jen say aye. Ruben, John,
Aye.
and Ruben.
You might be on mute, Ruben.
I can't hear him.
Wait a minute, isn't Ruben the IT guy?
For now, we'll just have Ruben as a, Ruben, you can type in the chat and I can see,
It's not muted now.
might just be a bad mic. Ruben, you can type in the chat and I can take it from there.
Oh, we've already won.
Maybe he can't hear you.
I think he can.
We've all approved it, so we'll say the minutes are.
Bob, were you abstaining or you?
Abstaining.
Okay.
Oh, maybe we don't then, do we?
No, you do.
Yeah, you do. For.
You've got a quorum.
All right. Chair's report, I really don't have anything except the news that Max provided last week in terms of the new potential project, which is going to require, I guess, a town meeting. I think that's probably going to be the bulk of our discussion today, to see what if we're supportive of the plan or not. But so Max, maybe, and John, are you on any time frame, or can I leave the COVID update till the end?
It's actually fine if you want to have John go first.
You can leave it to the end if you want, or I'm happy to go first.
Okay, why don't you go first?
Okay, it's very active time for COVID in Lincoln County, Maine, New Hampshire, New England, with the exception of Rhode Island. They've all of those states have seen case increases above 50% in the last week or so, and the majority of the cases, as you'd suspect, are people who are unvaccinated. Here in Lincoln County, just today, we had 23 positive cases. So for us at Lincoln Health, that's the highest number we've ever seen for a single day. And this past week, we had, I believe, 74 cases total, with a good portion of them, a good percentage of them being breakthrough cases, people who are vaccinated who have gotten COVID-19. We continue to work hard in terms of getting the vaccination done. We've been in a lot of our area schools lately, running the clinics through the schools. We have a full slate of clinics this week. We had a full slate last week. Did about 470 kids age 5 to 11 last week, and we're on tap to do something similar this week. And we're also in the process of offering boosters to the community Monday through Friday. 8 hours a day on those days. The sign up is done either online or online at vaccinemainhealth.org. There is also a phone number that people can call as well. But right now we have this week's appointments are full, and again, we're pretty steady with those. We will be having a special vaccine clinic for 5 to 11s at the Watson Community Room the day after Thanksgiving, especially considering that because some parents want to be with their child when when they get the vaccine, and they're working during the school day. So hopefully if the kid's off, the parents might be off too and have the opportunity to do that. But yeah, it's a large uptick of cases and consistency here with COVID. The other challenge that we're having with our programs across the main health system is hospital capacity is really thin. We have a full house at Lincoln Health, and a lot of the other hospitals are in the same boat. So many of them have postponed non-critical surgeries. At Lincoln Health, we basically meet on a daily basis, looking at the next couple of days, seeing what's on the docket for critical surgeries and what are ones that potentially, if we can't get to them, people may be able to wait. And we recognize for the people who are in the case, say you're a total knee replacement and your surgery is considered not critical. Well, it certainly is critical to you. And we certainly understand the frustration that may come with that. So if we can at all possibly get them in, we will do that. But we're working well as a system. For example, we have a couple of patients in-house now from other hospitals that we're taking care of in our nursing care facility because we have the staff to do so, and they have nowhere to put them at Parkview Hospital and other places. So we're working well as a system that way. The challenge continues to be the availability of beds. We have high acuity patients waiting in the emergency department for beds. It's just a really challenging time. I think it's important to recognize that, we are probably as busy as we have been since the start of COVID. I know when we started way back in the day, there was a lot of panic, a lot of gratitude, a lot of thanks. And right now we're in the throes of it like we've really never been before. And, it seems like a lot of people are accustomed to it now. They know that COVID is here. It's probably here for a good period of time, and it's something that we have to work with. So I can't state, in any way that does it justice, how amazing our team has been in doing the work that they're doing. And, still doing high levels of testing, 600 plus tests a week, doing school clinics, doing booster clinics, and, running primary care practices and hospital practices. It's a pretty amazing group, and they're working really hard. And, I just want to make sure that I mention that because I think, early on in this pandemic, healthcare workers were treated as they were heroes, as they should have been. And those heroes are still doing the work today. So anyway, that's my report for this evening.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
As an old guy who got a booster shot, do you have any reassuring generalities about the degree of how bad people get it on these breakthrough cases? And if by chance there's a pattern about which shot you got?
So if you did not get the Moderna shot as your first shot, the recommendation is to get that as your booster, because the research and the studies have shown that if you had Pfizer, you had Johnson & Johnson, for example, you should get either Pfizer or Moderna, because that crossover for people who got the Johnson & Johnson builds a lot more antibodies than others. So if you got the Pfizer or the Moderna, stick with it in the booster. And if you got the J&J, switch over to one of the others. The one thing I think that's critically important is while we see a lot of breakthrough cases, the people who are getting the sickest and who are ending up with complications in the hospitals, to the largest percentage, are people who are unvaccinated. There are some people who are breakthrough cases who get sick, but typically the percentage is far more in the favor of the person who's gotten the boosters, gotten the vaccine, and has not gotten vaccinated just yet.
All right. So yes, then I can feel a little reassured.
You've done essentially everything you possibly can do for yourself, at least right now, in terms of what's available to you for COVID. Yes.
John, how do they rationalize prioritizing hospital beds for people who are sick and have not been vaccinated and are taking a hospital room because they have to be on a ventilator or because they require some kind of skilled nursing care that I'm assuming would not be necessary in most cases if they had been vaccinated.
Yeah, typically we don't have people in skilled nursing care for somebody who has COVID. COVID gets treated outside of that environment. The reality is that hospitals, particularly nonprofit hospitals, can't turn anybody away. That's part of our mission, and I don't know that we would want to turn anybody away. We certainly want people to be vaccinated, and we want people to make that decision and help everyone else out by doing so as well as themselves. But we certainly recognize there are still some people who don't want to do that, and it still remains our job to care for them.
So
And we will give them the care that they deserve or that they need.
if I come to your door with a heart attack, what happens?
You will be treated.
In a bed?
Or if your heart attack is severe enough, you'll be stabilized and transported to a place like Maine Medical Center. Those folks are still being cared for. But you know, the capacity across the system is really, really slim.
Thank you.
So there's two really interesting things from my perspective. One is, I don't know how accurate this is, but I heard a report that the hospitalized ratio of folks that haven't had the vaccine to folks that have had the vaccine is 11-1. Are you seeing that kind of a ratio, John?
So Maine Health produces a graphic on every Wednesday for a week-to-week update on that. I would say that the hospitalization cases are much higher. Yeah, I don't know that I would say 11-1 at this particular point, because our hospitalization numbers, although being very big in our community, when compared to larger states, is a very small number. So it might be that 11-1 might be in play in other larger places. It is significantly more in terms of the hospitalization rate, and the people who are hospitalized without being vaccinated, by and large, are much sicker than the others who are hospitalized that have been vaccinated.
And then the second really interesting point from my perspective is it's going to be curious what happens with healthcare costs. If you're a smoker, you have to pay a premium because you're more likely to end up in a hospital. And it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out in terms of, why should someone who's vaccinated have to, support the unvaccinated in a hospital? So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out, I think.
To bring this around to some small modicum of economic development, when during the last year, when there's been news stories about levels of disease or a pandemic in the country, Maine has stood out as a safe place to be. So safer, right. People are moving here, bringing their businesses here at some point because it's a safer place to be. That's quite a stretch from the topic to the topic, but it seems worthy.
It's a factor, though.
Yeah.
It is a factor, and I think some of that is population-based, to be honest with you. We're a relatively small state, and we may stay that way, and there are less numbers here. Maine has sort of been, it's been interesting in watching that the phenomenon of something that's happening in California 2 or 3 months ago gets to Maine. And while California is all fairly done with it, for example, the Delta variant, we continue to battle it. We just seem to be a little bit further behind, and we have been since the onset of COVID. We were one of the last states to really have our first COVID case. So it's been very interesting to see how that works.
All right, good. Thank you, John.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Do we have anything on town update outside of discussion about the project?
So, the select board, I think last meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, last select board meeting, an RFP was put out for 80 Gray and an RFP was put out for Friendship Street School. Both are available online for anyone to view and for potential developers to look at. It's now left out to the public and we're going to see what responses we get.
Have there been any?
I've certainly had people asking some questions, but no actual developer right now.
So right now, there is no future plan for 80 Gray.
We're seeing what the market has to offer.
There's nothing there's no plan right now.
What was the second site?
Friendship Street School, where the Head Start program was.
Oh, that's interesting.
Are we advertising these at all, Max?
I have given them to the Dodge Report, which is a New England advertising group who publishes to interested contractors throughout the region. So Julie has put out ads in I can't remember which newspapers, but those are the big ones pretty much.
I'm just concerned people are gonna come back and say we didn't do enough to advertise.
That's just that, we'll never know what was the appropriate amount of advertisement.
Yeah.
If we could put an ad in the Boston Globe, but then someone's going to complain we didn't put one in like the New York Times.
If you're ever able to sell it, it's because you weren't asking enough.
Yeah.
When are the RFPs due?
January 19th.
I was going to say sometime in January. But that's the main thing right now. The town's preparing for the special town meeting on December 14th for the EMS pay. There's going to be a public hearing this Tuesday to discuss the issue. People who came to the town office and voted probably realized Julie was handing out the information slips left and right to anyone who was voting, saying, don't forget a special town meeting on December 14th. And we're really going to hope that there's enough people who show up and that it doesn't snow that day.
Is it a town meeting in the traditional sense or the one with paper ballots?
Traditional sense, well, we have to see how many people will show up, but yep, hopefully it's traditional sense where people show up, they'll raise your hand saying yay or nay.
Wow, an old fashioned town meeting.
Correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, someone at the meeting can ask for written ballots.
Right, but
A
it's-
piece of paper.
I was always amazed that we went
Yeah.
to voting booths under the heading of the moving, calling this a town hall, a town meeting.
Yeah.
But that's at least it from the big town projects. In terms of planning board, we just had a meeting where someone did a private, their own private little pier. It was a shoreline zoning issue, so there was no big issue on that.
Is that the one down on,
Beaver Road.
yeah,
The person is just building their own dock between two other docks. There's really nothing special about that one.
there's a huge thing built off Hoff's Point.
Yeah, it was way out in the river.
Yeah. Did that ever,
Hoff's Point. You'll have to tell me more about this after the meeting because
okay, it's done. I mean, I assume that they've gone in and gotten permission for it. It's a
I can't
pretty massive structure.
I can't think of anything on Hoff's Point off the top of my head.
You
What
see
is it?
You see it looking down past the,
It's along a dock. Like,
What's a dock?
it's a pier.
it's a bunch of
float on
stones
the end.
piled with wood built on top of it.
It's granite, I think.
It is usually a pier.
Yeah, it's a granite. Yeah.
Well, we can talk about it after the meeting, just because I honestly, I don't
Do you
know.
want to give us an update on the eel?
Well, yes, the eel grow out building is, there was 3 tractor trailer loads of insulated panels delivered this week to be the roof and the skin. The tanks are in place. It's about a 295 by 100 something foot rectangle with lots of big tanks in it that will have eels growing in it. as soon as they possibly can, but they're striving ahead, doing a beautiful job.
So they'll be in production this spring when the eels start.
That's
running?
their goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. She also has eels that are already living up in
Oh,
the coast, yeah.
And we should give it what's the name of the facility?
American unagi.
America Unagi,
I don't. That's some language for eel.
which is Japanese for eel.
I think so.
And treat, I think. Lovely treat. All right, well, should we, Max, are you ready to talk about the new proposal?
Yes, so I'll share this.
Give us, there was just, I'm going to start by saying, I think there was some confusion in terms of whether this was a new project or a continuation or an expansion of the three projects that we talked about in the past for extending sewer and water. So I think probably what would be really good is just kind of give us a 10,000-foot view first in terms of what this is, and then we can kind of get into the detail, the minutia of it.
Okay, so this is somewhat what we were discussing, like in trying to think of a way of extending the utilities along Route 1. As I said at the last meeting, oh, there we go. Just got to get the screen shared. As I said at the last meeting, it's going to cost quite a lot to try and get the sewer and water from where it is right now all the way over to Minktown. So we'd have to work in phases right now. And in speaking with John Fancy and other interested people, and I'll get to that in a minute, hopefully people could see the screen, came up with this.
Can everybody see that okay?
I can't, but I almost can.
Yeah, I can't either, but the folks that are online.
Yeah, I can.
I'll zoom in just so people can see things. So right here is, this is Moody's Diner right here, just for reference point, yeah. So phase one of this project would be taking the water line that ends right here at the old Route 1 intersection and bringing it along the sewer line to the pump station here. That's phase one. Phase two of the project would be following this sort of cerulean line up past Delano's Seafood and across from the little seafood transfer station here, and then create a new local road system right here across the street from it, and then bring it up here so it's parallel with 235 or perpendicular with Route 1 and make it a four-way intersection at the 235
That's an
intersection.
actual road?
This would be a local road. If it's going to be maintained by us, it's going to be a local official road.
With the potential of what kind of development in that zone area?
That would depend on what the town wants. It could, because we would potentially be using an EDA fund for this project, the focus would be more commercial. However, we could obviously try and get like one or two high density multifamily units, like an apartment building or something like that.
Matt,
Yes, John.
Who owns the property?
This is owned by Carol Skoglund, hopefully I pronounced her name right, whose, I think it was grandfather, was actually a select board member here. I think the chair actually of the select board a while ago here in Waldoboro. So when I reached out to her and suggested this project, she was very happy and excited to actually be part of it, and the select board and I will be talking with her, I think next week, to talk more about overall what to do with the land going
Was his
forward.
name Skoglund as well?
Bragg.
Frank?
I think it was Frank Bragg, yeah.
So is the concept, so what you have outlined in white
Yes,
around that, on either side of that new road,
yes,
that would be new potential development.
yes.
Am I understanding that right?
At a minimum, we would be talking with Carol about getting this land or getting this land developed.
Yeah.
With the remaining chunk over here, I'd be fine still having that remaining under private ownership as long as we can get a guaranteed easement here, so that in the future, we could get another sewer and water line to shoot right out here back onto Route 1. Or in a similar area so that we can, again, shoot it back on Route 1 and continue making a parallel road somewhere else.
So, okay, so is this just sewer
Sewer and water.
and water?
Because that's why I said phase 1 would be just bringing the water up to where the sewer is.
Okay,
Because then once the water is there as well, in one swoop, we can dig up the area and have both lines laid out.
And you can put both lines in the same hole as long as you do it right.
As long as you widen it enough, yes.
I know they got rules.
They got rules. So it's going to be talking with DOT to make sure we can coordinate those times.
and how many acres is that parcel that's circled in white?
Well, did I have it there? I probably had it there. I put it in square footage. I don't remember. The entire lot is about 70 acres.
The lot outlined in white,
No, this is the entire
the entire,
parcel is about 70 acres.
So
But that's the bulk of it.
That's the bulk of it. I'm just looking at the whole parcel first, and I have the square footage up there. I'll get that in a minute.
Right, but probably 30% of it is on Route 1 and 70% is behind that new road. But it's all developable land, it looks like.
Except this area that's in the wetlands. That's about, that minus the road, we're probably looking at maybe 60 acres for development. And then let me go up and check.
30%.
Hey, Max,
1 second. So the top area is 494,666 square feet.
That's something like 10 acres.
And then the bottom half is over 1.1 million. So divide that by 40, divide that by roughly 40,000, you get your acreage.
And is the plan for the town to own that land?
That's what we have to talk to the owners about. Because,
The division.
Division.
Is a better word. What's the vision?
well, it could go one of two ways. The town can either own it or have a third-party organization own it, like what Brunswick Landing has over in Brunswick, obviously. The town could certainly own it, subdivide it, and then hire a realtor to sell the lots.
Yeah.
Or if the current owner wants to remain owning it, they're certainly allowed to do it, but they'd have to sign an agreement stating that they can't just sell it and turn it into a suburb with all these single-family homes.
Yeah.
From as far as what I want, first of all, I need to know that this is a project that can happen. So what will happen, so what the select board has done was approved me going out to see if there is an engineering firm who can do a feasibility study to show what the designs and ins and outs of this project are going to be. And I have Gartley and Dorsey as the only engineering firm who submitted a response to that. So that's what the select board will determine if we should go forward with Gartley and Dorsey on this. And Gartley and Dorsey can meet our timelines and are very generous for what they're doing right now. And then once we get that report, then we work on all the other details. 1 second, George. Jen, did you have a question earlier?
yeah, well, I wanted to make an observation that this subdividing the land with the road like that is actually a really good idea because it'll help take some of the traffic off of Route 1 and perhaps we can make the entrance to commercial entities in that area from the back instead of from the front, because curb cuts and stuff are such an issue with DOT usually, or too many in one area. They don't like that. So that's a great idea. And then perhaps if it goes forward, the development for residential might come on the other side of that road on the inside of it, perhaps.
And correct, and this was something that the comprehensive plan actually outlined a while ago, that Waldeboro's had this issue where a lot of businesses would always just want that Route 1 entrance, and there needs to be more encouragement of a back road so that there's still Route 1 visibility, but people would just have to come off of Route 1 to actually access the business.
Or you look at like the Walmart in Thomas, or I guess
Right.
Rockland, I guess, or Thompson.
That area,
But it's got a separate road
exactly.
to access all those new businesses.
Exactly. And as Jen pointed out, the DOT is certainly not happy with giving out all these Route 1 egresses. So being able to now have a dedicated area for a commercial business to be on Route 1 without actually using Route 1, that's going to be a very big draw for the community. And then, as you pointed out, we have this nice little back area so that if someone does want to have some more affordable units or housing in general that's on sewer and water, they have it without actually being right on Route
So
1.
you could have much smaller parcels if you run sewer and water.
Right.
Well, that's actually another thing. We'd have to work on the ordinance and either change the district that this lot is on, or we would just have to change the dimensional standards that we currently have. Because right now, this is Route 1A, and that means you have to always have 2 acres for every use. So if we put an apartment building on there, we have to provide 2 acres for every unit.
Yeah, you'd want to have a different category.
Yeah.
Does the feasibility of what's got the right dimensions around it
Mhm.
hinge on reaching the next phase up to the high school? Or is that a standalone project?
This is a standalone project.
It'd be phase 1 of a multi.
And it makes financial sense. I mean, it looks like, I think it's a great idea.
Because from what Charlie Endorsky's response to is, and this is a public document, and if anyone ever wants to see it, just let me know. I can send it to you. They estimate the project is maybe going to be $2.4 million. Hopefully we can get an 80% grant on that. But that's for not even a mile of expansion of sewer we're talking about.
Yeah.
And a good chunk of that is going to be just getting the water up to the pump station.
Is there I mean, obviously you're in very early stages, but is there a chance to get a commercial partner? A large scale,
When you say commercial partner,
somebody who would want to build on that site once sewer and water and everything are in place.
Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's.
It could be a trader, I don't want to name names, but
Something,
a large
it'd be nice.
enterprise.
So at this point, not a lot of developers would want to jump on and say, oh, I'm going to support, I want to build something there, because if I was to say so-and-so wants to build there tonight, people are then going to call me the next morning and say, oh, well, why aren't they just going to take the Hannaford property that's not developed yet? Or why aren't they doing this or that and this and that? And then people are going to try and also take them as well. And then people are going to say, I'm not doing my job by not having Trader Joe's go into the Bennies.
Yeah.
So I have had some interest and support. I actually just got a letter from the Historical Society today saying that just expanding the water up to where the pump station is, running right by them, that's going to be a game changer for them, because that means they can go ahead with some of their expansion projects, because they don't have a water system there.
Yeah.
I've also spoken with a few others a few existing businesses and people along this expansion who said, water and sewer going right by my place? Yes, please do this.
Yeah.
Again, they don't want to put it in writing just yet because it might not go anywhere. And then I'm not really.
is Moody's on town sewer now?
Moody's is on town sewer. So they would have town water running right by them as well. I think when this project was first presented a while ago, Chief Smeltzer in the audience, and he said just having the water expanded would be its own win at that point. Yeah. He was there for some other reason
Yeah,
that
as long
night.
as the pressure is good enough,
Then it would be good, yeah.
it'd be good.
I imagine there's ways to increase the pressure if we needed to.
Yeah, booster pumps, I'm sure.
Yeah. And again, that's all going to be something that Garley and Dorsey has to solve in their feasibility study to make sure that there's going to be enough water that serves these areas, to make sure that there's going to be enough pressure in them, and that both the water and the sewer facilities can handle not only it's going to be broken into parts, the phase 1 project of water getting up there, and the phase 2 of getting this area. How much is going to be too much at that point? And Garley and Dorsey is essentially given a bit of free range on the feasibility. So whatever is going to help save some money so that we don't, so we're not breaking the bank is always appreciated. Like, for example, while we may have the local road go up to 235, I almost might say just cut the sewer and water right here at the corner here, because there's probably not going to be that many developments in this little stretch. If there's a business that might already just get a whole lot like this, because they're already going to be hooked up to the sewer and water at that point. But that's going to be up to what they see. And we're also going to look at I'm going to speak with Gartley and Dorsey for other options, like a conduit, so that there could be underground utilities in this. It would have to be in this site specifically, because there is nothing there.
So that whole piece of land's undeveloped.
Correct.
And there's a wetland in the middle of it, but.
This one,
Yeah.
right. So obviously no development on it, but we will have to have like a bridge or some type of way of traveling right over it.
And development would have to be offset 100 feet or something like that from the wetland.
It's actually not shoreland zone. So as long as they're not building on those wetlands, they're fine.
Oh, okay.
They could build maybe 5-10 feet away from it and they're fine.
Okay.
I think you can create and trade wetlands too. There's ways that you do that, I think.
Yeah. Well, and they also have to see if it's of special significance, which
Yeah.
there's a chance. Jen, I see your hand is up.
I think this is a really interesting idea, Max. I think that it seems like you guys have thought it through very carefully. It's always been a challenge for how we were going to figure out most of Route 1 that's undeveloped has been for sale for years and years and years. And I remember Bill Maxwell, when he was here the first time, was talking to some of these owners, especially in this area along Route 1 going north. It's not really north, but going that direction. I think this is really interesting. And I also think that a lot of times when we were years ago looking for more commercial entities to come into town, and we were trying to draw them in, their biggest complaint to us was the lack of infrastructure. There just wasn't any infrastructure ready for them. And it was such a large project and investment of time and money and so forth. And they just went to other towns because those towns were ready. So I really think you've done a lot of good work on this. And I just want to say it's very interesting. Thank you.
So the quick anecdote I'll give on this, how this all came to be, was right after Will Pratt was elected onto the select board, he saw me looking at maps and said, "Max, what's it going to take to get sewer and water all along Route 1? And I laughed at him. Because I told him what I've told everyone here, that it costs $2 million to expand it up a mile. And I showed him the whole map and said, there's all these undeveloped lands. You're not going to get a good entrance. It's not good unless you have an actual spot you can go into and dig out. And no one's going to give up their land that easily.
Right.
So then I saw this parcel, and I reached out to the owner more on a whim, and they said, "Oh, that sounds like a great project."
Yeah, it's a great model.
And so
It's
I
a
had,
great model for future development on either side of the road going down. on the side of Route 1.
And it certainly has a lot of possibilities for what to do in the future. Because ending the sewer and water, even if we end the sewer and water where I'm talking about it, where my mouse is, there's two options you could go. You can either go north along 235 and then eventually find a way where you can cross all the wetlands, or you can take the red path and then you can either go right and back onto Route 1, or if the property owner to the south is acceptable, you keep making some lots down here at that point.
Keep on expanding into that area.
Yeah, keep expanding and
Between
keep
the Route ones, yeah.
between the Route 1s, yep. Although that's going to obviously limit some space, but then you eventually get a local road that could go right here. And by that point, you would have avoided this whole resource protection area wetland.
And all your curb cuts are off of Route 1. They're on old Route 1.
This is the Damascus model, actually.
Yeah. Is it?
Is it?
Yeah, they don't have any curb cuts on the good Route ones, right? They don't. Very few.
Yeah.
There's a crossroads, but that's about it.
So obviously, when this project came up, I had to apologize to Will.
Well, no, you're getting points with me. You don't need any, but you got some.
Jen, I see her hand up again.
Yeah, so just in case nobody knows, the reason why Damascus has not developed the Route 1 properties on either side heavily is because when that area was being, when Route 1 was coming through, the state bought the development rights on Route 1. And so basically that was part of the Gateway 1 project. We learned that there were areas that the state bought the development rights to and other areas on Route 1 as it was built that they did not. And Waldoboro was one of those areas where they did not buy the development rights. And that's one of the discussions that we had during that project was, oh boy, land use becomes really interesting when you, especially with DOT not wanting the curb cuts, not wanting so much on Route 1 because it slows down the traffic on the highway. It became a really interesting subject to learn about. It was very, very interesting.
Is there a way that helps us now? I mean, what do we learn from that is a lever?
Well, we don't have a lever per se, but what Max has done here is exactly one of the strategies that we had talked about, because that group of people was representatives from all the towns from Brunswick to Stockton Springs, 2 for each town, learning about the history of Route 1, how it was developed or how it was built and how it's been growing and so forth, and what do towns want. And what Max has come up with here as a concept is it's a really creative way for us as a town to maximize the use of, as we grow, of the land and take some of the pressure off of going in and out Route 1 with all the curb cuts, and also giving us a way to develop the land behind there and have a use for it with these roads. I love the roads, Max, with the roads so that people, well, first off, I live on Route 1. It's not very pleasant living on Route 1, but people could live back here and still have access. It would still be really convenient for them. And I think it would open up our discussion also to a more creative way of talking about what we want to see as growth in what areas. Instead of just having a strip of commercial zoning, we could talk about how we want an area to feel as we use it, something like that, more creatively, make it something more interesting than a strip.
So thank you, Jen. That's actually part of what I'll explain sort of the EDC and town's role for what the process will be, depending on how the vote goes on. I assume the vote's happening on Tuesday. So first, the town has to decide whether or not to hire Gartley and Dorsey to start all this work, to see if it's a feasible project and to see if this is something that we can do. That is going to be about $23,800, I believe, just under 24K is what we would have to pay for Gartley and Dorsey to do this. And then Gartley and Dorsey will get to work, and they should have a report for us by mid-February. And I asked them to have it done by mid-February so that by that point, I can immediately go to the select board literally at their last meeting in February and show the report.
When does our grant proposal have to be in?
So it's a tricky timeline.
It's tight. I know
It's tight. We have to have a contract signed by them by September, but EDA takes months to get to that point. So we have to get this and then get the application, get the match funding, get letters of approval from a lot of agencies. We can try and aim for June to get it submitted. It should be submitted in March though. And we'd have to be able to come up with our 20% match, which I'm trying to talk with my contact from EDA to say, we'd have to probably go to a town vote on that. Is there any chance we can submit the application in March and do our town vote in June? Because for 20% of this project, that's a pretty big cost.
It's still a lot of money.
It's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
20% of the, not the engineering cost, but the whole project.
The whole project. Like the 24,000 we have to pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
The rest of the 20% and potentially the final engineering costs, all that has to be accumulated somehow.
And that's like, what'd you say, $2.5 million was that, or?
2.4 is what they're projecting. So that's
20% of that is
just under 500.
1,000, yeah.
And TIF money could be used for this.
So we would bond using TIF money.
That's just what I was gonna.
So George, tell American Yanagi to, kick it out of here. Yeah.
I think, it's one of those things that if you can get the 80% funding, you'd be crazy not to do it.
Right.
Well, it all depends on what kind of arrangement we're able to make for ownership of the property.
Right.
I agree with that too.
We're talking with the landowners. We have to figure out what the ownership is going to be. We have to figure out how much the overall project is going to be. We have to determine who our engineer is going to be. And then for the TIF, there is American Unagi. But with this lot being in the TIF district, we can take an assessment of saying subdivide it and just the subdivision alone. How much is that going to raise for the property?
Oh, the value you add by subdividing it.
Right.
Well,
And having it subdivided, having the local road, and having sewer and water.
and it becomes part of the TIF zone, right?
It is already in the TIF zone.
Okay, so, and then I'm going way ahead here, but I assume that with the current ownership, you could make an arrangement that says, look, if we go through with this, the value of this property goes from here
To there.
here.
Yep.
And maybe there's some kind of happy middle ground where the current owner retains a piece of the property, but maybe not all of the property.
Or maybe we
Right.
have a development rights.
Well, maybe by the development
Or maybe,
rights.
or maybe
It's-
I mean,
It's all something that has to be discussed with them.
Yeah,
So
But all of that financing is going to be part.
for this,
Right. So it isn't like the town needs to say, we need to come up with X $100,000 today to buy this property. We're going to make it,
we'll have to bond it and say,
we'll make it part of the bond. I
um,
think it's terrific.
so, yeah, so from hopefully next week to February, Gartley and Dorsey will do their work. And I'm going to keep knocking on wood every day saying it's going to be good. And then between that time, the Economic Development Committee can talk about the future for this site, what you want to see for it, and just maybe even reaching out to these property owners themselves who are there right now and saying, hey, we're going to do this project. Do you have any thoughts on it? Would this be a benefit for your business? Can you write something?
Can you bring a discussion in on the red part, the part that doesn't have a plan yet? Because to me,
We can discuss
they're
that,
very
yeah.
complimentary, and I mean, if I was at a voting booth
Mhm.
and I knew what the second phase looked like and it was an even additionally good idea, that would, I mean, that to me leverages phase one,
Right.
if we can close in on it.
I think that's a really good point that you talk about, wait a minute, this isn't the whole game.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the start of the game. This is here's where the game ends.
Right, this is self-supporting, financially a good idea, and it only gets better.
Right.
As you extend it.
And I think you gotta bring in that the long-term plan is to get water and sewer out to the school.
Yeah.
Because the town's gonna like that a lot.
That's
That is the end.
the dessert.
That's the end game.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
It'll take a while to get to that end game, but that has to be stressed.
You gotta talk about it.
I know.
Will the engineering firm delineate the wetlands as part of their scope?
Sure.
What do you mean delineate the wetlands?
Well, you've got it on a map. You show us about where it is, but
They do have to recognize where the wetlands are.
they have to recognize where they are and do their planning around. I mean, you could drill horizontally through a wetland and not have a problem.
Right.
When they were doing, they did the eel.
Yeah,
And they had to get permission for me to go in through the woods drilling holes to see what was down there. They completely mapped the wetlands.
okay.
It's part of what they have to do.
Yeah, when they made references, I'm surprised they didn't even mention you. I'm serious.
Not me, it would be the American Uganda, but
Yeah, but
that project should.
just surprised they didn't do that. But
I'm just surprised it's as dry in there as the map indicates. Because my impression has always been that it was really wet in that whole area. And I hope I'm wrong.
well, we also thought that the recreation complex was a very dry and sustainable field for development.
And
Well, the good news is that's on the top of the hill,
Right.
so it tends to be drainable.
it slopes down.
It slopes down.
Yeah.
It helps a lot. I saw Jen's hand up.
Yep, again, sorry. It just occurred to me, is there any way we could wrap in fiber somewhere?
I mentioned earlier that although it would not be a lot of the area just in phase one, in phase two, when we actually get into this land, because it's technically an unserved area, we can have a conduit and a fiber line that runs along it.
That would enhance the saleability or the utilization of,
So
And residential aspects of
Yeah.
that side of the street.
the whole thing.
We have power nearby.
there are utility lines that run along it, yes.
It's all three phase, I suspect, on Route 1, isn't it?
Yes.
It would need to be.
Actually, it is, because I think there was interest in making some solar along Route 1, but no one sold.
You're not gonna take a bullet or anything, are you? I gotta excuse
Oh,
myself.
that's fine.
Thank you.
Take care. So yeah, once the engineering firm hopefully is selected, I will mostly be doing updates with the EDC on this project and just saying, this is what the firm's done. This is what I've been saying to them. This is what I'm gonna say to them. Does anyone have any thoughts on it? And then we can talk about, other phases, future phases for it.
Well, and I think, I'm kind of with you originally. Our challenge is going to be the timeline. And so once we get town approval to move forward in concept on this,
Mhm.
then we're going to have to actually lay out a timeline that gets you from point A to point B.
That's what we're gonna talk about a
And
lot
that's
of
what we
these.
gotta talk about, I think, at our next meeting.
How many people are in the parcel along the red piece of road? Is that dozen landowners or is that two? The next, okay.
That's one landowner there.
This is all the same landowner.
That's all the same landowners inside that.
From sea to
No
sign.
triangle.
What's to the, I'm gonna say south, but it's not.
This one?
south. But yeah,
That's how. That's one lot owner,
and whose parcel is that?
Kastner.
It's what?
Kastner, that's what the text card says. A lot of this area over here is actually the resource protection, so we wouldn't be touching a lot of it.
Yeah.
We would likely just be over here and need both of these lot owners.
That's a beautiful parcel, though, put it all together.
Yeah,
But
the one that's the long skinny triangle, there's probably even room on the south side, I guess it's south of the red road in that skinny
Circular.
triangle. That may be big enough to have residential stuff.
so
You could build your road to ensure
Well, yeah,
that
you don't
it
have
is.
to, right, you don't have to have the red road where the red road is.
Yeah,
right.
In fact, it logically would be in a straight line with the other one, unless you like intersections.
So, John, Jen, Ruben, do any of you three have any final thoughts on this, since it's almost 8 o'clock? And I feel you might have been sick of hearing this project enough.
Could I make a,
Well, hang on, let's go.
Yeah, Jen first.
All I would say is, I think you should go for it. I think it's a great concept. I think it's the beginning of us being able to figure out I mean, we've been stymied for years and years. And I think it's great. I think it's great.
Okay. John, do you have any comments?
I just think it on face value is a really good looking project that will definitely potentially benefit the economy of the town for years to come. So yeah, I'm in favor of moving forward.
Awesome. Ruben?
Ruben might be doing it in the chat.
Oh, is he not there?
Ruben's there. His mic's on, it's just not doing anything.
Not working, all right.
So Ruben, if you have any comments or questions, just put them in the chat and I'll read them in just a minute. During that time, George, do you have any thoughts?
no, I was gonna say, I'm not sure why there's make that go away. Why there's the break in the straight line. Why wouldn't the red road be in the straight line with that white road?
What do you mean?
You've got to,
Oh, you mean why it's not this straight?
yeah.
This was just so I could have some smaller lots down here again for housing. And then over here could be the commercial people who want that Route 1 access.
Right, well,
Or Route 1 visibility.
what I was gonna say is that if the two roads were in a straight line, you still have both those things and it's not a zigzag. You
Possibly.
would make slightly bigger house lots.
To be honest, I wasn't thinking too much on phase 2.
Well, that's what we're for here.
Because initially the whole concept was doing the L shape here, and I only just included this whole thing so that we'd have a road that goes straight through the whole property that's in line with 235. And then I just threw in another line there just so that we can say, you know, if we're buying the land or we're not buying the land, we still have that guaranteed easement.
Yeah, well, no, what I'm suggesting is that as far as presenting this conceptually, I think it's a more attractive concept.
Make a
It's
plus sign
yeah,
instead of,
It's a straight line with an intersecting road.
all right, and Ruben's comment is do the things. I like that one.
Plural.
All right.
You know, and I think a lot of this is gonna, when you get down to it, is, you know, who wants to buy the property?
Right. And
How big are the lots going to need to be for, you know, for Trader Joe's? How big a lot is he?
well, and
Is he gonna be able to fit on that phase
well,
spot?
and that might be what actually determines the future of this parcel, because you know, we go public with the whole thing, and if I have Trader Joe saying, "Hey, I want to put a place right there," then I'm probably going to get some more, you know, residential type focused things. Some people wanting apartments, and then some like little retail stores for those apartments, and it's going to keep building off that. But I might get, I'm trying to think of a better example. I might get another auto service person there, and then it all turns into a more industrial type space or commercial area where people are going to drive through. They're going to find what they want. Maybe some drive-through restaurants. Maybe there's going to be more drive-through banks. Maybe there's going to be.
I mean, the idea that you could, on phase 1, what road does phase 1 end at?
This.
Yeah, what?
So this would end at the intersection of 235 or Union Road.
Okay, so you actually have a beautiful in one, come in on Route 1 on one side and out.
At the intersection.
at the
Well,
inter-
this intersection would have to happen regardless, but this, I would only really need the connection for the sewer and water. So if we just, even if we didn't have the local road going all the way to Route 1, we could cut it like here, and we just own like a lot right here at Route 1, and that's where our pump station would be.
Mm.
Just save a little money on just the,
I was just thinking for
The local road
if
asphalt.
restaurants wanted to be in that location,
they
it's kind of
might.
convenient that you could come in on one end and leave on the other.
It's something that I certainly hope will get some positive feedback. And all the people who are saying that's a great project, I hope they still have that positive thought when I eventually bring the actual price tag out for how much it's going to cost the town.
Well, I mean, and that 80% of that's going to be funded by other sources. I mean, that's a pretty big number.
Potentially. I have to submit the application, and if I don't get the application, we don't get the 80% of funding, then we shelve the project until there's another opportunity like this. But we'll have the feasibility study. That's what's important.
Well, and it could be, and this sort of, I joke about Trader Joe's because I think they would never move here because they got plans, but it seems likely that as the whole mid-coast area elevates itself, which it has, I mean, our section of Route 1 at the bottom of the hill is so much nicer than it was 10 years ago. There's gonna be somebody who wants to, I hope it's not McDonald's, or I hope it is a McDonald's, whatever it is, there'll be people who want to use that once it's possible to use. You build it, and I think, I don't know if it's
That
kind of a place it's gonna be, but something will go in there.
someone will make the first move, and they're going to be the one that help define that area.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, that's exactly right. All right, Ruben, I was going to ask you to do a technology update, but I guess.
Oh, geez. There was a lot. Oh, Ruben gave us CCC update.
Oh, okay.
Let me go read it. We're continuing to reach out to ISPs about opportunities to expand broadband service. This phase of data gathering involves proprietary information, so we have to be vague for the moment. There's new federal and state money for things like broadband. We need to figure out how to get that money spent in Waldeboro. Gonna stop the sharing.
There is infrastructure money
There
afoot.
is the infrastructure bill passed,
Yeah.
and it's going to the states and there.
And how long will the trickle down be on that? What do we guess?
It'll take a bit.
Months?
I don't know that. I don't think the state's preparing it for the upcoming Connect Main grant rounds, but they do have their own designated authority who's going to handle those funds. And just to piggyback off of Ruben and the CTC, we also sent out a survey to unserved areas in the community. And I sent out, I think, 160 surveys to what I thought were unserved spots. And I got about 40 people back. So that was a good response.
Would it benefit you to have the EDC members at the town meeting Tuesday?
I mean, Bob's technically already going to be there.
What's that?
Bob's already going to be there.
I mean, in terms of even the vote.
If you want, that's fine. As I said, the select board is also going to be talking about the EMS hiring pay increase. So it's certainly an important night of discussion that's going to happen regardless. So people can feel free to attend. And yeah.
It's at night, I assume.
Yes, the meeting will usually be at night. I don't think any committee or board now meets any time other than night.
Right. Any old or new business that we need to discuss? All right, I guess we're adjourned.